Five.
All right, guys, welcome to the Future History Podcast, and we're starting on this Monday, Labor Day. Let's start with this day in history, and then we have a treat. We're going to talk to a former police officer. I don't want to say former Marine, because once a Marine, always a Marine.
Right.
And we're going to discuss some of the current events that are going on in today's world, especially specifically New York. And start today. In history, what was known as the Blitz started by the Germans strategically bombing London. And it was basically 57 days the Germans aerially bombed London. And they, not only did they destroy 1 million homes, but 20,000 people lost their lives. So try to take that in for a minute. 1 million homes, 20,000 people. And the Blitz continued until May of 1941, but it did not succeed in breaking the British resolve, and eventually Germany had to start to focus on the Soviet Union in the East. All right, so today, basically wanted to talk about some things that were going on in the world, and one of the big issues that we've had, especially with the protests we've seen, are the Black Lives Matter people, Antifa, people such as that. And one of the concerns that a lot of people that I've spoken with on the other side of Black Lives Matter is what is the difference between the organization itself, Black Lives Matter, and the people who are out supporting the blacks that were shot by the police or suffered police brutality or discriminated against in other facets of society. So we're really going to try to differentiate between the two, because I think it's really important as I see more and more businesses, synagogues, churches, sports teams, franchises, putting money behind this group. It's only gaining power. And I think that it's basically trying to appease, and it gives them, the people donating the money, it puts them in a good light in the media. And I think that if before these organizations donate, they should know who Black Lives Matter really is, and the difference between the people that, they're trying to claim that they're out to avenge, and the actual organization. So the person that I have today is a former police officer. Again, we like to say, once a Marine, always a Marine. So he's a U.S. Marine. And we're going to just discuss some things with him. And I think the perfect place to start would be just to go into, your beginnings in law enforcement. How did you start and so forth? New York City, right?
Yeah, I became a police officer in 1985.
Okay.
The majority of my time was spent in the 75th Precinct, East New York, Brooklyn.
Okay. East New York. Now, I've been to East New York plenty of times, but I've had relatives that grew up there back in '85. I can only imagine the type of area it was. So.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever saw that documentary, 7-5?
Yes.
With Mikey Dowd?
Yes.
Kenny Urell said it perfectly. Welcome to the land of fuck.
Yes, it's just...
that was the...
Now, what was some of the... one of the things that I find that's a real issue for police nowadays is not only are they facing problems from the outside, and when you watch the protests, they're really getting treated poorly by the protesters. There's no respect on either side. Here and there you'll see some nice shots with the media try to make it like it's a peaceful protest, but back then, what was it like as far as the administration and stuff? Were you guys backed by your administration? Was it has that changed, do you think, today? Like, what's the...
it's probably worse now than it was then, but even back then, we were more worried about supervisors and, internal affairs. Back then it was inspections, just to drive around the precinct in unmarked cars, follow you to jobs. How long did it take you to get to the job? Why did it take you so long to get to the job? Did you have your hat on when you got out of the car to go to the job? Shit like that. You're out there worrying about life and death, saving people and,
What I would think, something too I wanted to ask was, back then when they were coming around to make sure you were doing your job, like uniform checks, things like that, if I feel like nowadays what these cops have to deal with as far as it's almost like they're nervous to pull people over. It's, I mean, I would think it's sometimes because of the fact that, I mean, I see it where, you know, they just don't get a fair shake in any, you know, like anything they do at this point. It's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. So I'm imagining now a lot of the things that they're putting up with, you know, they're, especially if they pull over somebody who's a minority. Was there a lot, like back in '85, was there issues like this going on as far as the minority community, or was it more like laid back that way?
I mean, there's always been issues like this. I mean, back in my time, you know, we always had Al Sharpton, you know, stirring the pot, so to speak.
He was, I remember what he looked like back in the 80s. He had the chain, I mean, he looked like a gangster. You know, he had the chains on, he had the, you know, the hat, not the hat, what kind of haircut that was. That was like, he had like the long, acid-treated hair. You know, he was a character. But that was the Tawana Brawley case, I believe, that started.
Yeah, that was upstate, I believe, with state trooper.
Nightmare. And they grilled this poor guy. That it was a state trooper. I was wondering if it was a cop or a state trooper. So they basically grilled this guy. I mean, they tried to ruin his career. And then it turns out she totally made the story up. And that's how this guy, you know, like that's how he got his start. It's bizarre to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
to this day, I don't think there was ever an apology from Sharpton.
I mean, Bill Cosby, you know, of all
disappeared.
people, came out. And I remember Cosby putting the guy down. And it was like, you know, not only was there no retribution or any sort of apology, like you said, Sharpton made his career off of this case. Because that was the first time I remember seeing him was with the Tawana Brawley case.
Right.
So it was a totally fraudulent case, and now this guy is in politics. He's become like a real, you know, you only see they cart him out when there's something going on, if there's a shooting or something, but he has no legitimate, you know, no legitimate claim to fame, that's for sure. So you want to talk about some of the shootings or some of the cases that you were involved with when you were a police officer? I was just curious if there was anything that, you know, you really remembered from those days that kind of would be of interest to anybody listening.
I mean, I was involved in a couple of shootings, police-involved shootings, where I was the one firing my weapon. And what people don't understand is how it works is if you're involved in a situation, when they bring you back to the command, first of all, they separate you from your partner. And they could interview you and your partner separately to see if there's a different story or some kind of different narrative. And when you get back to the command, the duty captain's waiting for you, internal affairs is waiting for you, and they bring in a district attorney.
Now, this is any time an officer discharges a weapon?
Correct.
Okay.
And the district attorney isn't there to assist you or aid you in any way. They're there to see if there's any basis for charges against you. So this is what the interview is about. Yeah, that's the reason why you have internal affairs there.
So this whole idea that there's this like
cover up or you know that they try to sweep it under the table.
Yeah, because that's always like brought up when anytime there's a shooting of any sort. They always try to, you know, the media especially will paint it like there's some type of, you know, like you said, like a cover up, or there's this like wall of silence about it. To me, what I've observed, and I've spoken to a lot of police officers also, it's like they don't want to ever have to pull their weapon. It's not something that they want to be involved in, because not only is it, you know, a case, you know, the case itself, but then coming back and having to deal with that, and it's just, you know, it's brutal. So,
well, I mean, even after all that, once you get past that step, you have to see a psychiatrist. You know, within so many days after the incident.
Is that to determine your mental stability, or is it to counsel you a little bit?
Well, to determine how you're handling it, what the thought process was. You know, you have to go through all this before they let you back on the street. And, you know, the times I've been to the psychiatrist, they always tell you that, you know, I forget what the total percentages of police officers that actually have to fire the weapon in the 20 years career. It's very low. I want to say less than 10% that actually do get into these situations.
That's what I heard also. It's like such a you know, a minuscule number of police actually have to discharge during their time. Wow. So, you know, that was always something I was curious of. What was the process after something takes place?
That's why I said people don't realize, you know, they investigate you from the second you pull that trigger, which I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess any time that happens, it has to be looked at. But with that being said, you just said that there's already people kind of headhunting for you guys
Right.
at that point.
Could you do me a favor and just adjust your mic a little bit
Sure.
more towards your mouth?
Yep.
Thank
You got it. So the yeah, I mean, if they're out headhunting already, I mean, that's, you know, it's. I can imagine today too that it's. I imagine it's even worse with what's going on today. I mean, these guys, what they're putting up with now. I wanted to also ask you, as far as what you're seeing today with these protests, Black Lives Matter, and you know. Where did this organization even start? I mean, what was there in your, you know, you've done some research into them. So what is this organization? Is it just a bunch of people trying to support the people that were shot and to kind of stand up for minorities, or do they have a bigger picture behind them?
Well, again, like you touched on before, what people have to understand there's a difference between the term Black Lives Matter and the organization behind Black Lives Matter. I mean, my research, there are 3 people who created this movement.
Yep.
They're all self-proclaimed Marxists. They're anti-American. Their manifesto is to kill random white people, to execute police officers. I mean, this is self-admitted. This is what they're calling for. We're not making this up. You know, but people don't understand. When people say Black Lives Matter, yeah, no shit. All lives matter. You know, I don't know how anybody could say Black lives don't matter.
Like they
But
say,
when you have that term,
sorry.
you know, there's a difference between the term and the organization. And the organization is taken away from the term, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's the big, you know, there's a lot of people, I think, in this country, you know, based on the footage you see. First of all, when they put the footage up of the shootings and the things like that, you're only seeing a certain portion of what goes on.
You're only seeing what they want you to see.
Right. And again, I'm not, you know, I really try to give a fair take on it, because I think the only way to ever reach any sort of, you know, sit down on both sides is if we really take, you know, let's call spade a spade and like take a fair look at it. So obviously, in the case of George Floyd, when you see a police officer and he's got his knee on the guy's neck, I mean, there was nobody, and there was no police officers that I knew that said, oh, you know, that's absolutely, that's something that should have taken place. I mean, I got that, and I don't think there was any whites, Spanish, nobody thought that was a you know, a good thing that took place. But the reaction to it was so over the top that I just think that it's like this whole thing got blown out of proportion.
Well, I mean, obviously, anytime somebody loses their life, it's a tragedy. Whether they're an evil person, a good person, loss of life is a tragedy.
Yeah, and I don't know
But-
any police officers, like you said, that don't
Yeah.
feel that way.
That's what I'm saying. When I was in the locker room before we turned down on patrol, I don't remember anybody in the locker room saying, "Oh, I can't wait to kill a black man today,"
Sure.
or I can't wait to lock up a black man today."
Right.
I've never seen it. You know, and I work, like I said, I worked in East New York, and it's primarily a minority.
Yeah, I
community.
mean, all
back
the
then,
areas, that's
back
a tough
then,
area.
we led the city in homicides every year. We led the city in violent crime every year. It was. So
what was the
our
relationship between the officers and the community in those days? I imagine it was you had, you know, white officers in the area. What was the relationship between the community and the police in around '85, like in, you know, back then?
I mean, to be honest with you, the good people were happy to see you. You know, there are a lot more good people in these neighborhoods than there are
Yes.
criminals. You know, obviously a criminal doesn't want to see a cop.
Right, and,
You know,
and
and
that
the-
gets lost also in all this.
The only time you're dealing with the community is when they're at their worst. You know, either you're pulling over for a violation, giving them a ticket, you're responding to a crime, you're responding to an injury, an aided. You know, you're meeting them on their worst day.
Right.
But the majority of the community is happy to see you come by.
I think that gets lost also because, again, like you said, I mean, the media, it's basically at this point it's a show. I mean, they're just what they want you to see is what you're going to see, and they just want people to tune in. So obviously you're going to get the worst of the whole scenario. But I've heard from yourself and other officers that in those areas, a lot of the relation isn't terrible between all the whole community and the police. So I think,
mean,
you know,
unfortunately, you don't deal with those people as much as you do the criminals.
right. Unfortunately, right.
They're behind you, but you don't deal with them on a day to day.
Yes, yes. Now, my research with the three members or the three starters of Black Lives Matter, I know two of them for sure were self-proclaimed communists or socialists, and if I could kind of pinpoint what they're trying to do, I don't think, because you notice it's not just, it started as a movement of, for blacks, and I noticed that a lot of the protests that I had seen, you had like this agenda where you had gays, you had transgender, other people kind of linking on or tagging up with this group, and it made me wonder, like, is there more behind Black Lives Matter than just trying to, see a better future for blacks? So it appeared to me, if I could put it in a nutshell, it looked like that organization was trying to basically do away with Western civilization, the family structure or the nuclear family where you have a mother, a father in the house, kids. They wanted to do away with, I believe they actually said they wanted children, and this is, deep into it, but they wanted children to be raised by the community as opposed to being raised by the family. Also, there was a huge anti-Semitism sentiment that they display. So I just think that that's something that has to be brought to light, because I don't think a lot of people know who they're donating to. Have you been to any of the protests yourself? Have you been to any, either side, for Trump or for the other side?
I've been to back to blue rallies. And even that, it's a peaceful rally. It's just funny at these rallies when they get going and they start chanting USA, USA, USA. If there is opposition there, they take offense to you chanting USA.
That to me is, I don't understand that whole concept.
I've had people stop and curse us
for
holding an American flag.
When did that's the other thing was like.
Well, I think that's part of the BLM.
Yeah.
That's their agenda. That's their narrative. If
Down
you
with
support America, you're racist. If you support Trump, you're racist.
Well, who do you support? Is my question to them.
Who do they support?
Right.
And who are they trying? Like, there was an interview the other day, and they were interviewing somebody, a black guy who was for Trump, and this guy was getting attacked by the other side. They were, the protesters were lined up, and they were calling him every name in the book, and then that makes you wonder, like, what is it that you're after? Because I don't know. I don't know what they support at this point. I really don't. It's bizarre. Anti-law enforcement. I think that whole thing about defunding the police entirely and everything else, and there should be no police. You want to see a country.
Social workers.
Yeah, they want to sense. You've been you've had shootings take place when you're a cop. What would happen if social workers showed up at that instead of the police?
Well, it's funny. One incident in particular was on New Year's Eve. I can't remember the year. It was like 89, 90, 91, whatever it was. And we responded to a call. I can't remember what the call was we responded to. As we were handling that call, we heard shots fired around the corner. So my partner and I ran towards the shots. And I was telling another officer this years later about it. And he's like, whoa, hold on. He goes, so you heard the shots, you ran towards the shots? I'm like, yeah, that was the instinct. You ran towards it, you didn't run away. And he laughed, he goes, yeah. He goes, as a cop, that's what you do. And we ran towards the shots.
That gets lost in this whole narrative.
Right. And, I chased the guy into the building. And luckily, I had my wits about me and I kept my tactics. And he tried to ambush me in the building. He was on a second floor landing, waiting for me to come in the building with a Tech 9, which is basically a machine pistol, waiting for me to enter the building. As I came in, I had my tactics. I looked up first. I was able to shoot to him before he was able to shoot me.
Wow.
Yeah,
and as this was going on, there was a female police officer counting down the new year. So as my partner's calling for help, he's trying to call a 1013, which is police needs assistance. There's a female officer, 10, 9. People yelling at her, shut the fuck up, get off the radio. And she kept going. And I'll tell you another thing. To my recollection, I called two 1013s or 1085s, which police officer needed assistance. You know who the first person that showed up both times was? Mike Dowd.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So people ask me about Mike Dowd,
Yeah.
you know, because they see the documentary. To me, if you ask me about Mike Dowd, you saw the documentary.
Yeah.
You know his story. You know
Sure.
what he is. But like I said, I called for assistance twice. He was the first guy to show up both times.
Yeah, and
That holds.
that holds
weight.
right. I mean, when it comes down to it, who do you want to have in a foxhole with you? And that's
Right.
what, you know, I just, that whole thing with the, you know, since 9/11, I just remember, you know, and I, like, I mean, we could go back further, but I for the young people out there, you know, you go back 20 years, you go back to 9/11, the patriotism and the pro-law enforcement, pro-military, you know, it has completely changed 180 degrees since then. I mean, any first responder of any sort back then was you know, was sought after. Like, you know, now, I mean, it's like if you're in any sort of position that you, like you said, that you support America or you support, but they're just trying to do away with it. And, you know, something that I wanted to actually ask you about this, something that we talk about on here a lot is rather than defunding the police, I've had experience taking a police test, and it was skewed towards minorities getting the job. And I think a big problem with the hiring practices, the big problem with police is the hiring practices that you're using. You're not getting, in most cases, like the most qualified candidates. Now, do you have any experience, like, with the way they hire? Was there anything you noticed in those days with minorities? How, you know, I mean, affirmative action, like, what was the...
Yeah, well, I know back
tone?
then they had the affirmative action. I believe people of race got a little extra credit on the exams. I know, for instance, when I was in the academy, my law professor had taken the sergeant's exam. When the results came out, the list for promotions came up, he had missed the list of promotions. And there was another instructor in the academy who was of race who made the list. And my instructor had scored much higher than him on the test. But because of the affirmative action, this other instructor was placed above him. And like I said, I was in the academy, I was new. My law instructor broke down in tears in front of the class, crying. You know, he had a family to support.
Yeah.
He's trying to better himself. He had a high score on the test,
Sure.
but yet this other person that had the lowest score is above him. And it's not the other person's fault. It's the system. You know, I mean, if somebody's giving you extra points, you take it.
Yeah, you're not mad at the candidate.
I mean,
you're mad
yeah,
at, you know,
you know.
Yeah. Well, that was, you know, I don't know if they even used the term. You and I had spoken about this prior to the interview, affirmative action anymore. But I know in '96 I had taken the police test. I mentioned this on the show before. I scored very high. I got 100 on the test, and then went through the whole process. Was a step away from getting into the academy. Test was thrown out because not enough minorities scored high enough on the test. So I think this whole portrait that they have, that there is privilege and there's you know, my only concern is that my children, your children, children of blacks, children of Spanish, everybody's on an equal playing field. That's what I'm trying to get across with this podcast. I'm not looking to put whites ahead of blacks. I'm not looking to put down blacks. I'm not looking to do anything like that. What we're trying to do is just level playing field for everybody. And I think that with affirmative action and things like that, you can't hire people based on race. You can't hire people based on anything other than qualifications for the job and then expect the performance on the other end. So I think a lot of these cases we're looking at, you might not have the most qualified officers to, you know, and it's just something that I think it's never going to be fixed unless they, you know, they change that. So.
Well, I mean, you can't sit here and say that there's no such thing as prejudice. You know, because there is.
Correct. And
You know, but this isn't the way to go about
right.
change. You can't fight hatred with hatred.
Exactly.
You know, I don't think the prejudice is widespread as it was, you know, 50 years ago, 60 years ago.
Right.
But there's still prejudice. Again, I don't see much of it. But to say that there's none of it, I can't say that.
Did you experience it while you were an officer or while you were in the Marines? Did you have any sort of incidents?
In the Marines, everybody's one color. You're green. There's light green and there's dark green. Everybody's green.
That's interesting. That's yeah.
You know, so I never experienced.
Color was not a thing in the
No.
Marines. You just, you know, because it's life or death for those guys, basically. Wow. Interesting. And as far as when you were an officer, did you notice, was there anybody that was, you know, like openly taunted because of his race? Was there any sort of, I mean, anything towards any minorities based on the color? Like, you know, not stuff between friends. I don't mean like
Right.
joking around, but like openly racist.
No open hatred. You know, there was ribbing. There was,
normal.
you know,
right.
just guys being guys. You know, locker room shit.
Yep.
You know? I mean, we work with gay people. We work with, you know, people of color. You know, at the end of the day, when push came to shove,
I'm going to pose a question to you, and this is something that I would actually like more feedback from other people on also, and it's a question I've always asked. Take a word like the N-word that is used in rap lyrics. It's used, I mean, you hear athletes use it. Basically, anybody of color has carte blanche to use that word. In this society, should there be words in the English language that one color or race should be able to use that, like, what's your feeling on that? If white people can't say that word, or they're fired from a job for, let's say, a newscaster or a sports guy said it, and then you hear an athlete say it in an interview and it comes out, there's totally different treatment on both sides. So what's your feeling on that as far as, like, I don't...
yeah, I've given this some thought.
Yeah.
And I think it's about context. You know, it seems like when a white person says it, there's hatred associated with it.
Gotcha.
But in like the rap lyrics and stuff like that,
It's a
you know,
term.
sometimes it is hatred or you know, meant in that way. But you know, it's not a word in my vocabulary.
Yeah, mine neither. And I just find it like...
Yeah, it's kind of hypocritical when you know, somebody who uses the word goes after somebody else for using the same word.
Right.
But again, it has to do with context too.
You know, I feel like a lot of the... and I agree with you there, because I think that is... The point is that in a lot of times it is context. When when whites use it against blacks, it's absolutely...
Well, whites could use it against whites.
Right.
You know, to me, maybe the word doesn't have the same meaning it did 60 years ago. You know, again, it's not in my vocabulary, but, you know, I've heard whites use it against whites.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I hear that word, and like you said, like you'll hear like a white kid say it to his friend, and it's like...
Sounds like they got brain damage.
Yeah, it's odd, but you know, I just feel like, and now I just want to we'll keep it like in discussion format instead of asking questions. You know, I find it hard to like rationalize this whole thing with like everybody wants equality, everybody wants things to be on an equal playing field, but like
Well,
How do they come to that
I don't even think they want an equal playing field. They want an advantage. You know.
yeah,
I mean, as far as like reparations from slavery, you know, I never owned a slave. I don't know about you,
never.
but
Never.
you know, they want white people to have to
My
pay.
family wasn't even here during that era. you know.
Right.
And that's another issue, is that, you know, and again,
it's not everybody.
No,
You know, it's a
it's
small
not.
group.
And the problem is, they're the ones that are heard all the time, and
Yeah.
it gives everybody a bad name, because you know, if you speak out against this small minority of people who are bringing a message to me that's totally corrupt at this point. If you speak out against them, it looks like you're a racist because you're speaking out against the black. I'm not speaking out against black people. Some of my best friends are black people. I'm speaking out against a movement that to me is an anti-American movement.
Can I just say something?
Yeah, go right ahead.
They apparently the number is like $80,000 if there was to be reparations per person who had slave ancestry.
I've heard that number
It
before.
would be 80,000. That's what they said.
Is that a total, do you know, or
Per
is
person.
it
Per
Okay.
person with slave ancestry.
You have to cough up 80,000.
80 grand per person.
Okay.
But
Okay.
that's a one-time payment. What is that going to fix?
Yeah. Well, I have heard that.
It's crazy.
There was a news show that I was watching years ago, and they were saying that the amount that they came up with to, I guess, better race relations would be 80
Yeah, give them
Gs.
80 grand. Just
That'll take care of it. I don't know.
I don't know how they arrive at that number.
Yeah, but I feel like, you know, it's such a deep problem because most people at this point whose ancestors were here were not here during the time of the Civil War. You know, immigration has taken place since America first started, and I just think that,
Yeah, I mean, injustice has
Yeah.
happened to every race
Yeah.
over some period of time.
yeah.
And, and I'm not downplaying slavery.
No, it's
You know?
that's the thing. It's like, you
Slavery
know,
was disgusting, but we all know it.
yeah,
Right.
It's hard because as a white person, I try to come on here and like any, you know, I find more like, I'll give you an example. When we did that meeting in Smithtown, we did it with the idea of preventing violence from taking place. That was our only goal because the propaganda that was being passed around
Right,
was
the flyer they sent out promoting the event had pictures of burning buildings.
correct. So, right. So our whole idea with getting people to come down was just to, you know, protect the town, make sure that no violence broke out. That was it. I wasn't trying to, and my partner that was involved wasn't trying to stop anybody from getting a message out, anybody from having their right to assemble. Basically, you exercise their First Amendment rights. That's not what we were there for. But automatically, and I didn't utter a racist term. Nobody, and I made sure before the protesters arrived, myself, my partner, and several other people that had organized it said, do not engage with them. Do not say anything. Do not, just let them do their thing. But
Look through 'em.
right, look through them, and if violence breaks out, do your best to protect the town.
Right, protect
But that's
property.
it. That is it. And automatically, because we did that, and I also made that known the whole time when I was logging on to various sites and social networks online. Smithtown is the most racist town in New York. I was called a racist. Several other people, their businesses they were trying to boycott their businesses. And it's very hard because you almost feel like you can't have your say. And that's why I wanted to have you on today also, because I know that you're a fair guy. You've been in law enforcement. You served in the military. I think if more blacks, especially the ones that are out there protesting, saw people like yourself and saw that all you want is just fair play, I think it would go a long ways to appeasing this whole problem.
Well, let me ask you a question. How many times have you been in a debate with somebody that's on the other side, and when they can't respond to you, they say, well, you're white, you can't understand.
Yes.
That's the way they end it. You're white, you'll never understand.
What it seems to me is that when I argue or when I see people who have a similar point of view argue with me, we come out with facts. Like, I'm not going to argue something. First of all, I'm going to research it and make sure what I'm saying is accurate. So I've tried my best to come out with facts or the truth. If something is black, I call it black. If it's green, I'll call it green. And then I noticed that once you do that, and not just myself, but other people who I've noticed arguing that point, they'll automatically on the other side come at you with feelings rather than an emotion, rather than the truth.
But
And
I'm talking about other white people.
Yeah.
Come to you and say,
more-
well, you can't understand because
Yeah.
you're white.
We're going to
You
take
can't
that
understand.
back to brain damage.
Yes, I've had
You
more
can't understand
Right.
social injustice because you're white.
Right.
So are you.
Not one black person had, and I asked people in my office building before I even did this thing in Smithtown, I said, how are you guys, as blacks, let me show you the flyer that was passed around. Now, my reaction to the flyer was this: we're going to be getting a bunch of guys just to go down. We're not going to be threatening or anything, just stand there to make sure nothing breaks. And they're like, I would do the same thing. So I find then when I was logging online, the people that were saying it and calling us racist and the town racist were white. They weren't black. So I feel like they're the ones that are causing more issues than anything. And it's like, young whites. And I don't know. I don't know what the...
Well, again, I think they're buying into the term Black Lives Matter instead of realizing who's behind that. I mean, like I said, the words themselves, of course, it's a no-brainer. But when you put it together with the organization, you have to understand the organization's goals.
Right.
They don't give a shit about Black Lives Matter. They don't give a shit that some 5-year-old kid was killed in the street.
Right. No,
That's not what they're out
you
to
never
protect.
hear them there
No.
protesting. Correct.
Yeah, you know?
And that's why I wonder, like, is it, you know, if you're a level-headed person, and, you know, to me, like, sometimes I like to look at the other side a little bit. I'll watch their point of view just to see what they're saying, because you're always going to be learning, and you know what I want to see? Maybe they have good points.
Right,
They
you
have
want to understand.
Yes. I don't find that reciprocated on the other side. I don't find like they actually take the time to listen. They even when they arrived in Smithtown, they were shouting, you know, "S my private area," you know, "F the police," "F Trump." It was just vile language right from the get-go.
I heard from the protesters the N-word. You start with the N-word, pussy bitch, you ain't gonna do shit.
Yeah,
You know, this is from the protesters, not
Correct.
not
Not
the
right.
community standing on the side.
right. And
But the media didn't
don't
catch
cover
that
it.
part.
You have a lot of frantic 18-year-olds who are aligning with the groups too, and they're a huge problem because they don't have any life experience. And I know through social media, like quite a few kids who get involved with this stuff, and they have these bold statements, but no context of the history of why
Right.
they're even saying what
And
they're
they're being manipulated.
Right.
They're like just pawns, and they don't get it.
right,
You know.
useful idiots, as Stalin
They
said.
think it's trendy because they're a part of this
Right. Right.
Right.
like designer event, you know, and it's pretty. If that's what scares me is the ignorance, and then you start to talk to someone in private, like on the phone or whatever, you know, you have coffee with someone, and they're on the other side, and like I'm pretty well versed in history, you're well versed in history. These people have no idea anything historical. I can't say all of them, but the ones that I've spoken with, they don't know what they're talking about. They just know that they're there for that moment, and whatever happens, happens. Some people like to just go on, like, you know, Tinder, all these apps. You see people who are like looking for someone to go protest with me in Long Island. I've seen that like several
Yeah,
times.
it's literally a
like,
fad.
It's like dates. Like people are going on dates to do this crap. First dates.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah.
Isn't that disgusting?
Amazing. It seems like too a lot of this generation. There's been nothing, you know, in the last 15 years or so, 20 years. There's really nothing that's occurred since 9/11 that, you know, they don't care about the soldiers that are overseas, which is terrible. You know, they don't. Their only concern is to the end of their nose. They don't care about anything else but their own little cliques and their own little groups. And it's like.
But again, that's not the majority of people.
It's not.
But
You're right.
It appears to be because
Yes.
that's all the media shows.
Right, and that's a great point to make, and that's why. What else bothers me too is like when I hate when somebody says something. Granted, if you say the N-word or you say something stupid like that, you should apologize, and you should be held accountable. But for somebody who makes a truthful statement about something that might rub this little minority of people the wrong way, and then they come at this person and they start demanding he loses or she loses their job, they issue apologies. Once you apologize, or this person, they just come at them harder, and it's like they descend like vultures on these people.
Look what they did to Drew Brees.
The guy basically, when he came to New Orleans, he right after Katrina,
He saved the city.
yeah, and all the charity work that he did. And let me tell you, 90%, I'm sure, of the charity work he did was from minority communities. You're talking
Yeah.
about New Orleans,
Right.
and they have a high minority population. And the guy was loved. And they vilify him for something. I don't even remember what he said, but it was
He
like,
just refused to kneel to the
Right.
national anthem.
right.
But then he
And
caved.
Yeah, then he.
And now he's got the sticker on. his
Right,
helmet,
right.
It's
Yeah.
like, oh my god.
But
You know,
that's,
I mean, I feel sick to my stomach with these people.
Yeah.
The professional athletes.
oh,
they're going to have a tough time bouncing back from this because, again, like you're saying, there's more of us. There's more
Right.
rational people out there. And I can't tell you how many people I see on social media saying, I am done with sports until it changes, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I had Drew Brees' contact info.
Yeah.
To ask him how he could hold his head up with the
Right.
How do you sleep
the
at night?
weight of that on his helmet.
Right.
A career criminal's name on your helmet.
Yeah.
That's who you're,
That's what. Yes.
And then you
you're
put
holding
down
up
law
to a higher light.
enforcement.
Right,
Career heroes.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, again, there is a small percentage of law enforcement that may not be.
There's always going to be.
Yeah,
any
100%.
human.
Yeah.
In any human.
Yeah, because it's human. Human
Humans
beings
are
you're
not
dealing with.
perfect creatures, and
Right.
you know.
And now you're putting police officers in a position where they have to think.
Yes.
You have a split second to make a decision. Now you're putting a delay on that, which, I mean, I'm not going to mention any names, but there was a police officer in the city a few years back. I actually worked with his uncle was one of my bosses. I believe he hesitated a split second and was killed. He stopped a man with a gun. He hesitated because I'm sure it was in the back of his mind that if he does shoot him,
Sure.
this is what he's going to have to.
Yeah.
And that's just one more thing that's going to slow you
Terrible.
down,
It's
and it
terrible.
cost him his life.
It's terrible.
You know,
I think about that a lot. I think about the fact now, like if I was a cop, walking out of my house 6 in the morning, whatever, going to report,
Yeah.
and now I gotta think that someone's gonna pop up behind me with a brick and smash my head in. I mean, this is what's happening.
It's crazy.
well, I mean,
I would be at attention all day, like,
you have a split second to make a decision.
Right.
right?
Now, you get a radio call of a man with a gun. You go, there's the guy who fits the description. You approach him. Maybe he says something aggressive to you, maybe he doesn't, maybe he's just there. He sees you and makes a quick reach into his waistband.
Right, what are you gonna do?
You had a radio call saying he has a gun with the full description. Chances are the gun's in his waistband. What are you going to do? Wait till he pulls it out and shoots you? Or with your knowledge, you're going to defend yourself? And then it turns out it was a cell phone.
Right. And then you know.
You know, but they're trying to bluff you
Right.
that they have a gun.
Right.
It's the mentality, you know?
Yeah, wow.
I mean, you know the cop has a gun. I mean, if you know that you're trying to punk a guy that has a gun and pretend you have a gun and you don't have a gun,
Yeah, you're the idiot.
you know,
You know.
I mean, you know, it's rough.
I think a lot of colleges also breed this mentality nowadays of, you know, you hear a lot of anti-American sentiment, a lot of anti-law enforcement. You know, I was in college going on 20 years ago, and I can remember going to the school and just remembering, because I was never like a neocon or, you know, but I just wasn't a liberal about these things. And I mean, the teachers automatically,
They'll fail you.
Yeah, I mean, I was taking some, it was like history of women's studies or whatever, and you can't even offer a differing view of something in these classes. And I had a lot of classes too, because I was going to be a teacher. So it was a real mixed bag of people. There was whites, blacks, Spanish. There was all different types. But I had to take a history of South African class. I had to take a couple of classes dealing with, you know, minority causes. And you can't even offer a differing view without being attacked. And let me tell you, that whole class will turn on you. And I can't imagine, you know, this on a bigger context, being out in the streets.
That's how me and my friend Travis became friends, was in political science in the senior year of high school. It was me and him versus 26 other
Yeah.
lunatics. And we would always sit one side of the corner of the room. We'd have these giant debates, and like the class, if they could only get their hands on pitchforks and torches,
Yeah.
they would have, and chased us out of the
Yeah.
damn school. But, you know,
I mean, to go off on a little bit of a tangent.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you watched that show, Adam 12.
I've heard. I've never watched it.
So was that like back in the 70s it was on? Maybe
Yes.
even late 60s?
Yep.
There's an episode of that show back then where Officer Malloy, who's on a cop in the show,
Yeah.
is taking night classes at a university. And the same thing, they attacked him
Yeah.
because he didn't agree with the professor's
Yeah.
narrative.
There's certain segments of society that, like you said, it's not everybody, but it's just, you know, it seems to me, and again, I'm speaking from experience. I'm not just looking at something and saying, oh, it's this, it's that. I got a master's degree. I was in college for a long time. I witnessed it I was in classes where it took place, you know, it's like diversity, the importance of diversity is totally replaced anything in education at this point. I passed my daughter's school, and out front, and I mentioned this before in the show, out front, there's nothing about math, science, English, anything. Diversity. Celebrate diversity. That's all that it is. And it's like, you know, there's all these little, you know, even though they're minorities of the population, they're important minorities, though, like the media, education, you know, things that shape a lot of young people's minds. Like these kids, they're only watching TV or the computer or the internet. So it's constantly being bombarded with the nonsense. And then they're in school where the teachers are basically promoting, you know, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them, and I've been in class, I was a teacher also, so I've witnessed that, where they promote this type of thought. And it's like, man, you know, if the parents are really up against it, if they're trying to keep your kid on the straight and narrow.
Well, I know you're up on current events.
Yes.
You saw the thing in Rochester when they were attacking the
Yes.
people dining
Yep.
outside?
Crazy.
Did you see there was an assistant principal from the school district there?
No.
Assistant principal from the school district was there, taking part of it,
Oh, my Lord.
screaming, "Fuck the police." I saw the statement from the school district.
Oh,
Basically how they support their employees to have a voice and
What?
to express their meanings, but once you use the vulgarity and violence and stuff like that. But they said they will handle it in a personal matter, and so basically nothing.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, there's an
That's
assistant principal
changed.
who's
That
an
has
administrator
changed.
over your children.
That has changed in schools, because when I was teaching, you know, my last year was 15 years ago, 16 years ago now. I don't, you know, I'd be hard pressed to find. It's not that I don't think teachers would have backed them up or gone to these events. The blowback from the parents would have been such that the guy would have been immediately
Well,
tossed.
like I said, it just happened.
Yeah.
School's not in session right
Wow,
now.
I just can't believe
But-
though the statements that they were like.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, it's like what we discussed in Long Beach. Mm-hmm. You know, when in the middle of the night somebody put signs all over the poles, they glued the signs, "It's okay to be white."
yeah, yeah.
News 12 covered it the next day. They had a woman, I can't remember her name, but she's the president of a community association in Long Beach. She came on News 12 saying that a statement of hate. I'm trying to remember the words she used. Basically, a prejudice statement, statement of hate. I reached out to her and contacted her on Facebook and asked her to explain it to me how "it's okay to be white" is a hateful statement. And she wrote back that it's a neo-Nazi statement,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. I tried to research, find it somewhere where it was used in the past. I couldn't
Sure.
find anything. I sent it back. I go, "Could you please send me a link so I could see the history of this?"
Yeah.
Because people are asking me. They blocked me from the site. You know,
Amazing.
and this isn't a
Yeah.
woman of color. This is a white
Yeah.
woman in the city of Long Beach.
Well, it's like they're the ones that are like stirring the pot. I mean, you know, like I said, this show, you know, I've known you before we've done this show. You're as fair of a guy that you'll meet. You don't have any.
Well, I mean, I try to, when somebody comes at me with something I don't agree with, I try to look to see what their point of view is first. 'Cause
Right.
maybe I'm wrong.
Which is a
It wouldn't be the first time I was wrong.
respectful. That's the respect. That's what a person does who has an open mind to things. And if more people were like that, you know, that's the big issue. Is that there's just that, you know, there is no sort of reasoning on that side. They just won't listen. They won't listen.
The key word I used before, frantic. Mm-hmm. They're frantic.
Right.
They're in a frenzy. They're like a group of piranhas
Right.
that run around
Yeah.
and just swarm into areas. Like
Yeah.
Raj, I could, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I
can't
don't know what you
believe-
would do.
I can't believe that.
You know, I asked myself what I would do if I was sitting there eating dinner with my family and somebody came up flipping the table. And you know, if you watch that video, they passed a couple of tables and went to the table full of females.
Right.
You know, why'd you pass the one with a couple of guys sitting at the table? Why'd you just go after the females? And then, of course, once they flipped the females, you know, the other people just left, and then they flipped the tables.
You know what the what the. I know what I would. I mean, you know what I would do.
And you know what I would do.
Right. So.
I mean, it's hard to say what you would do until you're in that situation.
Yeah, of course.
You know, because your
course.
first instinct might be to attack or defend,
Yeah.
but you have to get your family to safety.
Right. You're also in shock. You're sitting there eating with your family
And
or
you're with
whatever.
yourself. And
Right.
There's 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Right.
The issue.
You've seen the videos of the people on the
Yeah,
sidewalk
right,
unconscious,
right.
like a fish.
That's
the problem.
And the issue is if you stand up to defend your family, the media's the way it'll be portrayed is
They'll say-
peaceful group entering diner.
Right.
Racist guy gets up.
With this Nazi baby.
Right. You know. So that's why I say the most dangerous. You know, it's like having the media perpetuating this, and the schools. It's like, man.
And you brought up News 12 before, and I kind of have a little bit of a beef with News 12. They're really feeding the fire. They've changed greatly.
I mean, I used to watch News 12 a lot.
Yeah.
Ever since that Long Beach thing and how they covered the protests in
Yes,
Smithtown,
yes.
I don't watch them anymore.
Now,
Total.
did you
total
see when the
spunk.
guy Kevin Vesey, his name is, went to Comac and there was a pro-Trump rally and they almost beat
Right.
him up? It
Right.
was great. And then, of course, you know, News 12 came back
Yeah.
with their rhetoric.
Yes.
Now, I wasn't there for that, but I knew people that were.
Comac,
And they were saying what they showed wasn't what happened.
no,
That this guy was like,
Very
the
dangerous.
reporter was actually antagonizing
of course.
the protesters. And then
like that kind.
when they came back, that's when they turned the cameras on.
Yeah.
Again, I wasn't there. I'm just going by hearsay, so it
Looked
doesn't
like
mean
it was
crap.
pretty peaceful to me.
Yeah.
I mean, there was
Right.
all I remember is the woman saying, "You turn off Trump when Cuomo's talking," and you know that's the only thing I remember from it. But
Well,
they really tried to paint the picture that they were like this, like again, a
Do you
neocon.
remember how many windows were broken that day? How many buildings were set on fire that day?
Not one.
Yeah, I don't remember any either. It's weird.
Complete different. But that's the thing. You know, you have to. In today's day and age, anybody that takes the news at face value is.
It's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad.
It's like reading the Inquirer. You know, I mean, it really.
Another interesting case is the kid that showed up there in Kenosha with his assault rifle, and he was being attacked, and he would have been killed.
Oh, without a doubt.
And they're trying to paint this picture that he's this neo-Nazi who showed up to spray and splatter heads, but
Right.
they were beating him up. He was putting out a fire in a dumpster, and when they saw him trying to extinguish the flames, the piranhas come. What would you do? I wouldn't go to one of those things without a strap.
But look at that other guy. I can't remember where it was. If it was in, was it Milwaukee or wherever it was? He had an AK-47, and they interviewed him on YouTube just before the protest, and they asked him like why he had it, and he said none of these pussy Republicans or conservatives would do anything about it.
Big
And then
mistake.
he pointed a gun at the wrong guy sitting in the car, and it
I
turned
saw
out,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you get
And
what you get.
15 minutes before it happened, he was on YouTube talking shit.
Yeah,
you know.
then you get blasted.
Yeah.
That's what you get.
You know, you point the gun at somebody, you better know how to use it.
Yeah. Same thing if you pull a knife.
Yeah. Yeah. The same thing with a bat. If you come at somebody with a bat and they have a gun, guess what? You're going to lose.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
these people are biting off more than they can chew. They, you know,
They don't realize what they're dealing with.
Not only the violence, but just the statements that they're making. They don't know the whole connotations of it. You know, the anti-military, anti-police, anti-Trump. Like, they have no clue where. You know, they need to go to other countries, like you did,
Right.
see what the living
Well, I
environment
was
is
talking
like.
to this girl last night. She kept going on about socialism,
yeah.
socialism. And then I was like, well, you know, she's from Poland, so she like has like this European view, I guess. I'm like, if you want to see socialism at work, travel through South America a little bit.
Yeah.
And, you know, you won't see if people have computers,
Right.
you know, see
Right.
how socialism's working
Oh, yeah.
while it's actually at work.
You know, people came to this country for a reason.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't flee their countries.
Right. And then she tried to say, well, people aren't coming here like they used to. I was like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me?
No, they're just coming
There's a-
here elite. They're not
There's
being
a 10-year
documented.
wait list for
Yeah.
legal immigration.
Right,
Like,
right. No, it's, you know, unfortunately, like I said, the problem is these kids are not being educated properly.
No,
So-
and they all have degrees.
right, and well, they do.
That's
and,
the problem. It's like, what
Right.
the hell is the point of the college degree
Right.
if you come out of college and you're a Marxist psycho
Right.
who has no concept of how to achieve?
they're not taught to be good citizens. You know, the one qualification for them to be a good citizen is to fight against the system.
Right.
That's what they're told is, you know, fight, you know, this, fight that. But you're never told to conduct yourself in an adult fashion when you're approached by a law enforcement officer. How about just
They comply.
yeah, just
comply with the
respect-
local order.
Don't aggressively. What are you pulling me up? What, right off the bat, you're creating tension. Like a class would be so much more valuable in like interaction between civilians and law enforcement than a class on diversity for kids. Like, there's so many ways that this can be remedied, but I think education is necessary, and I think that different hiring practices and, really tackling some tough issues. And it's just easier to say it's him causing the problems, it's them, instead of looking in the mirror and saying, you know what, maybe I'm part of the problem. Some of these athletes should look in the mirror and say, maybe if I wasn't supporting rappers,
Well, they're Chinese
putting out
agents, by the way. I mean, everybody knows it.
Yeah, I know. That's so they say. But I think it's just the problems are so deep, and the kids are just, all the young people protesting are just skimming at the surface. But thank God, like you said, it is a minority. But
And also, they don't know what they're up against. They're up against the spirit of the United States.
yeah, a lot different outside the big cities.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But I mean, even in the cities, you have your fair share of people who are also very logical,
You do, but it's just unfortunate that the police are told to stand down. There was a case last night. I don't know if it was in Seattle or somewhere where the police charged at the group of protesters. That was online. They came at them with their shields up,
Oh, yeah.
went right at them. I mean,
sick.
it was pretty wild. And it looked like the gloves were off there at that point. So
I saw a couple of videos where cops had to throw their stuff down and
Yeah,
actually square
yeah.
up. I'm like,
yeah,
"Dang."
I mean,
Well, that's the thing. When they were initially told to stand down, it empowered the. I don't even want to call them protesters because they're not
They're not.
protesters,
They're piranhas.
rioters.
but it empowered them.
Yeah.
So now the next time they have a run-in with the police, they're going to expect the same thing.
Right.
I mean, that was the same thing when I was a cop. If you didn't handle your shit that day, the cop that came tomorrow is going to
gonna
have
deal
to
with
handle it twice.
Right.
You had to handle your stuff.
It's either handle it now or handle it later.
And it's
Either
gonna
way,
be harder to
yeah,
handle it
right,
later.
right. But
Yeah.
either way, it gets handled.
Right.
It was a much
Eventually.
different, it was funny because the night before they were just destroying this town and it was a much different picture once the cops, they were dispersed they were gone,
Yep.
So it ended it very quickly and I just think that this is
I
something
love when
that-
Trump's like, we'll make him go away in 30 minutes.
Yeah, and he's right
Whole
though.
city- I know.
But he's right.
Come on.
Especially if you
funny.
bring in the military or
Oh,
something.
God.
Trump needs an army if he comes to New York.
Yeah,
Okay.
I heard that. This guy,
Sure.
well, you're looking at New York.
Don Meatball.
The two people in charge, boy. Between-
Yeah, that was another thing I
Disgrace.
wanted to touch on.
They should be ashamed
yeah.
of themselves.
Please.
Once we pass this BLM stuff,
Yes.
which I think we pretty much covered.
Yeah, you guys are
pretty
good.
well.
Yeah, is there
But,
anything that you?
the gym thing
Yes,
with Cuomo, he's killing the fitness industry.
destroying.
Now he reopened it basically because he had to because of the lawsuits, in my
Yes.
opinion.
Yes,
Now you have to wear a mask when you're working out, which is detrimental to your health.
awful. I'm doing it right now. and it's
Also,
like-
masks promote illness because you're inhaling your own
Right.
bacteria.
Now, as far as exercise in the gym, I think it's probably the best medication for depression. So that's number one. Number two, it builds your immune system.
Yep.
But the fact that you're making people wear masks,
Oh, it's insane. It's insane.
it, like I said, it's detrimental to your health.
It's a perfect storm for these riots because, like you said, you have the depression from people being quarantined. And, a lot of people lost their jobs. It's just this is, and they're not getting to exercise or work out or whatever it is to schools are closed. The kids are all,
I mean, you don't have to be a fitness buff or
Right.
guru to get benefit out of going
Right.
to the gym.
right. Crazy.
Yeah.
But
He is.
You know.
He's definitely. I don't know why they're so heavy-handed with that particular industry.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not just the gyms. In my world, I'm a chef.
Right.
And I work for catering. I do weddings and things like that. Next week, there's 70 caterers statewide who are going to court against Cuomo.
well, that's another thing. I'm no constitutional expert, but I think this is all unconstitutional.
I agree.
I mean,
But then you have people who want to bend the rules and say, wow, we've never experienced a pandemic before. It's like, yes, we have. And,
Yeah.
so
Right.
you're wrong. But, I don't know. But gyms, catering, wedding venues, things like that,
Right,
they got slammed.
first of all, in the gyms, all right, if people are paranoid or worried about the virus, they're not
Okay.
going to go.
Right.
They're not going to go. So let people make their own decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I understand it's not easy being Governor Cuomo. He has a lot of weight on his shoulders.
Yes.
He has a lot of responsibility. But he's got to make a more intelligent decision, in my
Yes.
opinion.
Absolutely. I think
You know,
that's.
I mean, I understand.
Comfortable to me.
What's that?
He seems pretty comfortable to me.
he likes the camera, but yeah.
You know, that's another thing. Like,
to hear himself
you know, he
talk.
likes to blame Trump for everything.
Yes.
I mean, do you remember at the beginning when Trump was saying that he's putting together a plan for reopening? Mm-hmm. Within 2 hours, Cuomo was on TV
Yeah.
saying that he doesn't recognize his authority.
Yeah. Oh, it's insane. It's insanity.
Doesn't recognize his authority.
Yeah. It's
And
totally.
then the next day, he was threatening litigation.
Right.
So,
I don't
from
think
my
Trump's
point of view,
like that.
I think, well, it looked like Trump backed off. Because initially he was putting together a package for the country to reopen. And then when he started getting the pushback from Cuomo and others, threatening litigation, not recognizing the authority, then threatening it's unconstitutional, he kind of said, all right, you guys handle it. You know, which is a smart move on his part. Because now
Yeah.
you can't blame me for what happens.
Right.
You know, and then,
Which was brilliant because nobody's looking at Cuomo and de Blasio like they did a very good job.
well, Cuomo's writing a book about how well he did.
I know,
His
taking
brother
a
What
was.
the hell's with that?
His brother was. You know,
psycho,
I mean, even if he did a great job,
Propping
how
up.
do you write a book before it's over?
narcissist.
You know, I don't get it. He's out of his mind. He's out of his mind.
Oh, Warren Wilhelm Jr.
Yeah,
Warren's-
you know, that's another thing with de Blasio and this whole thing is how does a guy who
what a clown.
he gets elected, it's not even his real name. You know, he was a communist, you know.
You know what? You can't explain that kind of stuff because just if you go back in history to years ago with Marion Barry,
Yes.
Yeah.
he did time
Yeah.
for crack.
Yes. I know.
Got out of jail and got reelected.
I know.
What?
It's
I don't get it,
This is a
man.
black
insane.
woman though who threw black paint all over the Black Lives Matter
Yes.
mural. That I'll raise my
Yeah.
fist to.
Yeah.
Good for her.
And then she get locked up and be
Bro,
out the
yeah,
next day
and
and do the
she
same
came
thing
out
over
and
and over and over
They'll
again.
keep coming back.
Yeah.
Good for her.
because there are more people like that
Right.
that believe it. You know, it's truthfully there are. Yeah, I mean,
Right. There are more people that believe it
Yes.
that are on our.
Yes.
I don't want to say our side because
No,
there really shouldn't be
no.
sides, but they don't act upon it.
Right.
You know, we just sit back and watch, and you know,
Let the children play.
we're not activists. There's going to come a time when we have to be activists, though.
And then,
You know, and then
Right.
right.
they're going to regret.
Right.
You know, they're going to push
That's
it to
what
a
I'm saying.
time.
That's what I'm saying though. Like they're up against the spirit of America. Guys like you and you. Me.
I mean, I'm on a lot of military and Marine Corps groups on Facebook, and every day
also the
they're
left
like,
isn't the gun owning part.
what's going to happen when we get together? You know, right now they're facing kids,
Right.
and they're bragging about how they're doing this
They're
to
always
them.
outnumbering.
You know,
Men come to play.
Right.
yeah, wait till combat veterans step out.
Bikers, combat vets.
You
Right.
see that? Yeah, you
Business
see that when that happens. There's no violence at those. You
That's
know.
the best
Do you
with,
think it
with
was bad when
Sturgis.
the police?
Oh,
You know, they show up in Sturgis,
Yeah.
and they expect the police to protect them.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Dude, what are you calling the police for? They want to defund them. You don't want them here.
Yeah.
But when the shit hits the fan,
It's crazy.
who you calling 911?
Let me ask you a question. So the police will still have to protect those protesters, though.
Yeah,
There's no like they can't avoid them. If they need help, the police have to help.
yeah.
Job. They
That's
got it.
amazing.
Yep. Look,
That
the
makes
kid,
it serious.
the kid at Smithtown that got hurt. You know, one of the protesters or
That's the kid
rioters.
that was calling everybody
Yes,
an
yes.
N-word, pussy
he,
bitches.
He
What are you
got
gonna do?
hurt and ran right over to the cops.
Yeah.
Help! 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 That guy, that and,
Yeah.
and it's, it's like, come on, I mean, it gets to a point, but it's
Lunacy.
that's why I really blame. Look, it's deep. The problem in this country is deep. You have the families, a lot of breakdown in the families, a lot of But to me, education has. You want to defund something or change something in this country, education should be.
You don't support the military, but you're going to gain the benefit of the freedom that they provided for you.
Right, absolutely.
And they provide the freedom for you to say that you don't support.
Oh, it's
Can I ask you guys a question? Because I didn't read up on this, maybe you might know better. They're now they're saying Trump called combat vets.
Yeah.
What's that about? It's like I can't believe it.
Me neither. I mean,
It's like another one of those stories that are just fake news. That
let's face it, Trump's no angel.
Right.
He's not God's gift to anything.
right.
He avoided the draft in his time. He avoided it legally. medical notes, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He avoided it, but he avoided it legally. He didn't, go to Canada.
Yeah.
He didn't become a criminal. He did it by the rules. After Bill Clinton, it became
Right.
acceptable.
Yeah.
Before Bill Clinton, who was the first draft dodger to become president,
Yes. Yep.
Is that true? I didn't know that. Bill Clinton was
Oh,
the
yeah.
first guy.
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
I mean,
Yep.
I don't know
That
anybody
was a
before
big,
him.
big
Yeah.
thing when he was
Yeah.
president.
Yeah, just like he smoked weed, but
But he
didn't
inhale.
right, didn't inhale.
What a fool.
Those were
You know?
like the first. Yeah, that you never heard anything like that really
Yeah.
in an election
He was the
cycle.
first modern gossip.
I think so.
President.
Yeah.
I believe so
Yeah.
too.
Because the internet was, all these
He was brewing.
modern times were really starting around that time.
Well, they say Donald Trump is really the first
to utilize.
internet president.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's true. I mean, and I love to compare his tweets to Joe Biden's to see where
I mean-
the numbers are at. And Trump always,
Well, Trump's not a politician per se.
Right.
He's he's a businessman, which you could argue both ways about
Yeah.
his success in business. He had some failed businesses,
it's all right.
but again, everything was, to my knowledge, done legally.
Yeah.
I mean, he did bankruptcies.
saying
The
a lot of
companies did
business.
bankruptcies, but
Yeah. Well,
he's not a politician. He's not the most eloquent speaker. He's not Obama. He's not Clinton.
right.
Sometimes I kind of cringe at some of the things he says.
Yes. Yep.
But at the end of the day, I know he supports America, and he puts America
Right.
first,
You're picking.
which is again is the most important thing in my book, as
Agree.
as the leader of the free world,
That's what it comes
as,
down to.
as
for
our
me.
president.
I don't think he's the perfect candidate by any stretch, but it's almost like, you're picking the lesser of the evils, and I don't think he's evil, but it is, and, what's scary is when you get a guy that's a lifetime politician like a Biden, this is what you're carting up there. I mean,
Not just
like
that,
you
but
would,
that's everything that these protesters are against.
yeah, they don't,
It's so backwards, it's so
It is.
topsy-turvy that
It is.
they don't even understand what they're talking about.
it is.
And it's hard to debate with them because they just
Yeah.
they go crazy.
Yeah.
They're deranged. It's sick.
They,
There's
they
something
don't
in
want
the
to hear
water.
you. They don't want to listen to you.
No.
Like I
No.
said, that's what when they start losing the argument or the discussion. Well, you just don't understand.
I know.
Because you're white, you can't understand what.
Yep.
Dude,
It's really
did you look in the mirror? You're white too.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you can understand, why can I understand?
Well, that's like one of their first tactics is they try to downplay your intelligence. They try to make it like you're a dinosaur that you don't know, you're not.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, get out of here.
Um,
Get out of here.
Is there any other topics or anything that you want to get out there to anybody listening that
Totally off topic now.
go right ahead?
Lori Loughlin.
Oh, go right ahead.
Pop Pop's finest.
Yes,
I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about it.
I graduated the same high school as her. That's my only relation to her. That
If I had the means to do it,
Yep.
I would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I would do anything within my power
To get
to
your
advance
kid
my
ahead.
children.
Yeah. I
You
just
know,
think
why
it's,
people are against her, making her such a criminal, where other
That's-
stuff
that's a
they
very-
let slide. I mean, the person that facilitated it, all right, you go after him because he facilitated it.
He works
but he
for the,
put the option
yeah.
out there
Yeah.
that listen.
Yes.
All right,
That's a good point right there. That's a good point. Even
I'm
if
gonna
you're
use
against it.
Harvard as an example.
Yep.
If I had $100 million and I give Harvard $10 million and my name's on that library,
Right.
my kid's getting into Harvard.
Right.
No
Without
matter
a doubt.
what their grades are, what their SAT grade,
Yeah. Yep.
they get into Harvard.
Right.
What's the difference? I mean,
I think that if
Right.
you,
Donations on up top or donations
right.
down below. It's the same.
I mean, yeah, okay, it's wrong.
is it legally wrong or is it morally wrong? though? That's the question.
I think it's more morally wrong than it is
That's-
criminally wrong.
That's my take
But,
on it.
I'm an honest guy. I would do it. In a heartbeat.
Yep.
And I wouldn't apologize for it. And if I were Lori Loughlin,
There's
I
a lot
never
of
would have
people-
pled guilty.
Right.
I really prove it.
There's a lot of people I think that feel.
Well, it turned into a
Feel them.
racist issue too, by the way. Like that was
Of
one of
course.
the first
Right.
things. Oh, her
White privilege, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, that's the press soar away, and lawyers. There's lawyers out there that look for these types of things, and
Yeah.
they just sink their teeth into. They're ambulance chasers, sink their teeth into it. But I agree with you that if you're going to punish anybody in this thing, it's the person that works for the institution,
Right.
not the person who whose kid it is that's just paying money. The hell did they do wrong?
I mean,
You
like
know?
I said, there isn't much I wouldn't do to
Right.
to
What
help
was
my kid.
interesting to me is that her kid though was caught on tape being like, I don't really.
Yeah, no.
Right.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
You know, she like, she hung her
That's
mom out to
the
dry.
problem
Well,
with the kids.
that's what the result is when you pay everything for your kid that
Right.
way in some cases.
Do kids ever appreciate what you do for them?
That is another, that's a good point. That, and I have to say, I was lucky in most cases, but I get it. The younger ones, my teenagers are, oof, you know, they don't even realize. They will as they get older, but
Right.
I-
Right. Once they get older,
Yes.
they'll realize, oh, how much you did for them.
But I think that, like you said, a good point is that the 2 points in that is for Laura, is it legally wrong what she did, or is it morally?
Even if it is legally wrong. You know,
How
all right,
wrong
if,
is-
if
you know,
it is
like-
legally wrong,
it's like-
it shouldn't be jail time.
Right. That's
Maybe probation. You know, a slap on the wrist. Because
Right.
I
Yes.
find it hard to believe that any judge that's ruling over the case wouldn't do it.
right.
Number one, if they thought nobody would find out,
Sure.
or hasn't done it in one way or another.
You could bet a lot
Again,
of
like I
judges
said,
if
whether donating
Yeah.
money to the university,
Sure.
you know,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And anybody in power, you know, they use their power. So it's, but I think that even if you're against her, like you said, like the
What was the school? I'm sorry. What was the school that they were trying
I
to
don't-
USC.
Okay.
It was USC.
yeah, but the
Which I
and
didn't think was
Felicity Huffman
That
too,
kind of
same
school.
thing.
Right.
Didn't Felicity Huffman
Yeah.
get jail time
Yeah.
too?
Yeah, because she pled guilty long before
Yeah,
Lori
yeah,
Loughlin.
amazing. But you know, anybody, it's a chance to make an example of somebody with money, and you know, it gets pressed, sells magazines, sells the papers, and they you know they'll do it. But
That was a really interesting thing to bring up.
Yeah.
I haven't even really put any thought into that.
Yeah.
And I've actually not heard anyone side with her.
Yeah, neither have I.
You're, I think,
Yeah.
the first person so far that I've heard.
a lot of people like to say they won't, you know, because they're not
Right,
in
yeah,
that
'cause,
position.
you know.
I could bet if they had the bucks to do it, they'll do
Yeah,
whatever they got to do.
I
for their kid.
100%, if I had the
Right.
means, would do it.
Like you said, you're an honest person, and you're not afraid to stand up and say, "Hey, I would have." You know, most people aren't. And that's,
No.
you know, that's the problem.
And I would call anybody who says they wouldn't.
Yeah,
You're a liar.
yeah. Until you walk in somebody's shoes, but at the end of the day, even if you're against her, the punishment does not fit the crime by any stretch.
I agree.
I bet you she's going to have a stellar career after this prison stint.
Good point. You could spin that around where you know,
She's probably
Yeah.
going to kill it.
yeah, you know, who
It's left
knows?
to be seen. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting.
Because like right away she was off of Fuller House.
Yeah. Well, that's
You know,
it.
whether that was
Oh,
her choice or the producer's
well,
choice, I think it was more the
that
producer's
industry
choice.
is,
Look what happened to Roseanne Barr.
yeah, that's another
Right.
one. Right.
She
Right.
didn't do anything.
I know.
She just voiced her support for Trump.
Well, I think that it was. Didn't she say something about that woman on? She said something about her appearance or something, and I think she said it was I think a black woman, and I don't remember the exact, but I think she said something about the woman's appearance, but it's like you know I don't
Yeah,
think
I
it was-
don't remember what she said
crime in
either.
that, though.
That's what I mean. It's like
But it's
Why-
nothing that hasn't been said before.
that's, and it wasn't like it was like you can make fun of a person's appearance. It doesn't make it like she hates black people or she's
Right.
racist. And that's the thing. It's like you can't even, you know, and that's when we say it's these minorities are the people that feel. Unfortunately, when it's the media though and the schools, that's why there's these problems because the media just keeps pumping. So even
I-
though it's a small group of people, we
And I
see
can't
it.
remember. I believe she apologized like the next
Yeah,
day.
1,000 times.
Like came out and
That might have been
apologized.
the problem.
Well, that's it.
I believe that the apologies are the problem.
Yeah, they censor
Stand
weakness.
your ground, and then
Yeah.
you're going to have huge
Yeah.
support. On the
They got a
other side.
wounded animal, and then they all
And then
decide.
you see the meme that was all over the internet after that. I think it was Kevin Hart.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it was like, how the fuck do you get fired on your day off?
Yeah,
You know?
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah. But it's yeah, that was a good.
But that was another
See,
thing.
he knows memes.
Yeah, he does.
gets
I
the
don't even
memes.
know.
You don't know what a
memes,
meme
man.
is.
That was another thing that
wake
you know
up to
it
that.
happened.
I know.
It was news for a week,
Yeah, and then
and you haven't heard anything else
Right.
about it.
Yep.
But I did hear something last week. I don't remember. Maybe it was Dave Palumbo's podcast thing. If I remember
Arts
correctly.
Muscle or whatever.
Yeah, and they were talking about it for some reason, and they were saying they don't understand why the other cast members didn't stand up for her.
Yeah.
Like John
it's-
Goodman,
yeah.
who's worked for her,
Sure.
you know, worked with her for 40
Yeah,
years or whatever.
they rolled over
Nobody
her.
came to her side.
Crazy, crazy. Yeah.
Joe
I mean,
Rogan gave her a chance.
Yeah, he did. He did. He had her on there and let her have her say, and that's when she apologized when she was like, you know, But
I mean, I've heard she was a bitch, but
Yeah,
you know,
so-
I have no
right,
personal knowledge.
I also heard she was very liberal.
she has been in the past.
Yeah, like
but,
in
you
the
know,
past, like
yeah.
that was one of her shticks, was
Yeah.
that she was a very liberal person.
I think
Yeah.
it's look. They're just that whole, like you said. I don't even like to say side, but there is a group that of people, and they just it's like they just go from person to person to person
Yeah, they
and
can't
whatever.
wait-
Yeah,
they
yeah,
wake up every
yeah.
day. What
It's
we
like
gonna
this
get?
cancel. I guess they call it a cancel culture, and it's like just anything that they can make a news story of, a news cycle, and demonize to fit their this whole political agenda. It's just
Well, now that we're talking about Hollywood,
yes.
I don't know if you have any familiarity with like the Baldwin family.
Oh yeah, the Long Island family, sure.
You know, I used to work with Danny
Okay.
back in the day as
Yep.
a bouncer. You know, I always tell people that guy had the fastest hands I've ever seen in my life.
Wow, no
as
kidding.
far as a fighter.
Wow.
Their dad, their late father, was a wrestling coach at
Okay.
Burner High
Okay.
School, Massapequa.
Yeah, because I know Billy was tough.
They're all tough.
Yeah,
it's,
yeah,
it's a
interesting.
tough family, and
Wow.
it just cracks me up because Alec is like the most liberal piece
Yeah,
of crap ever.
yeah, yeah.
But I give him a lot of respect because push comes to shove, he'll knock you out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, he takes no shit like you see with the paparazzi.
sure.
You know,
He's looking a little tired lately.
I still would want to step in a ring with
Yeah.
him.
I ever see Along Came Polly?
Uh,
He plays
I'm
like
sure
the
you have.
boss of the he's like good things, good things.
Yeah,
Like,
he's a
walks up
great-
to that
he's a
still
good
and
actor.
Smacks him on the ass while he's at the urinal.
He's a very good actor, but I
He does
didn't
a good
realize
job.
that they
You gotta
were.
give him that.
And like as you know, I do some executive protection work,
Yes.
and I don't want to
Yeah.
give the name, but somebody associated with Stephen Baldwin. And I didn't know it, but Stephen Baldwin's a conservative.
Yeah, I know. I know that one. You
Because they
know.
were talking about the difference of opinion between him and Alec.
Yes, I started seeing him on social media, like, and he's putting things up against, against the left. So, yeah. But I know Alec is totally different.
But like again, even though he's a liberal and you know whatever he is,
Interesting. Yeah.
I give him credit because he'll talk the talk, but he'll back it
but he'll
up.
back it up. Yeah.
You know, where most of them will talk the
Yeah.
talk.
Didn't he get thrown off a plane not too long ago?
Oh,
or
for
something?
Words with Friends.
Yeah.
That was what, like 10 years ago,
Yeah,
maybe.
he's-
Yeah, he was playing Words with Friends and then wouldn't stop
Yeah.
when they
They
told him he had
shut
turned the
his
phone off.
Wi-Fi
Yeah,
off.
yeah,
Taped him yelling at his daughter or something.
yeah, yeah.
wild,
Over the
man.
voice.
Yeah, yeah,
Voice-
yeah, yeah.
But that was his wife.
Yes, yes.
What's her name?
Was it Kim Basinger?
Yeah.
And he called her a little pig or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
but these are like
Massive
family
equals
arguments,
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
It's funny at my current job, I guess. There's this guy who works there who looks just like Alec Baldwin and is from Massapequa.
Oh,
That's
wow.
the same haircut,
Yeah,
fat
yeah.
gut, wears like a suit, but he's like a
Yeah.
mess.
Wow.
It's so funny. It's like some
Yeah, that
like, we're in a
family,
certain
they were
type over there.
all actors, though. I mean, it's pretty amazing. So.
Well, Alec led the crew.
Yeah.
And then he brought everybody
Yeah,
with
he
him.
was the oldest, and he did. So
Yeah, like I said, I remember working the door with
Wow.
with Danny.
he looked like he'd be the one though that was tough out of them. He could.
I think
tell.
they're all tough.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know that that Billy was a wrestler or a boxer.
Right.
at
Well,
one
like I said,
point.
that was the dad's influence, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah,
You know,
interesting.
he died at an early age, I believe.
Interesting. So, anything else that you got for us? Anything else you want to bring up? I mean, we pretty much covered.
I mean, I'm sure I'm going to remember things after I leave. but,
yeah, or you
could
can
always
always
come back.
always come back. You know, we do it 5 days a week, and but anyway, I just again, there is a difference between Black Lives Matter and the support for the blacks.
Well, that's what we started with.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can do a whole.
Right.
Yeah, we can do a whole episode on that if you like.
Also, on my phone, I have.
Do you want to put it on?
If she wants to come on, I mean,
Do you want
do
to?
you want to come on and say you can? It's up to you.
Switch seats.
I just want to tell you,
Okay.
Darren California, I have it on my phone, show you the post.
Okay.
His daughter went to school, and in the school, when you walk in the door, there's a little sign with this stuff.
Yeah.
And Black Lives Matter is involved in teaching the children in the school Marxism. And
She was a
the
special
guy
ed teacher as well.
is-
Oh, wow.
And I'm a host from the guy,
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
pretty much crying, begging, begging.
But why don't we switch seats? You can also tell them about how you got banned from Facebook for sharing a post.
Yeah, I mean, I would really
Come
like.
on for
Yeah,
They don't-
But I'm
Did-
not using the bathroom.
They don't have.
Okay.
They don't have
Well-
to take. You don't have to be on camera. I'm not on camera.
I would love to hear it. So.
They're just showing his ugly face.
That's what it's really, you just, you sit there and you see it, and you're like, this poor man, what is he gonna do? He can't have what she's learning, and it's communism.
Well, I think that's this whole thing with the schools is just it's insanity that they're allowed to have any sort of interact. That group should have no interaction with students at all.
He went to the school, and
Grace.
they told him that the school is working closely with BLM.
Well, that's like on Facebook. I saw somebody put it perfectly. If, as a teacher, your students can tell your political beliefs, then you're not an effective teacher.
Right.
Because you should be able to just
No,
lay out.
I was a teacher. I was a high school
Lay-
teacher, and I had
Lay-
never.
Told in college, I went when my daughter graduated high school, I went back to school. So this isn't that, like, 5
Sure.
years ago. We were told never to get on Facebook. I just got on Facebook in April.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I am not going back to teaching, I know that. I can say and do whatever
Exactly.
I want.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
The first paragraph that I read in my first education book was,
Yep.
as a teacher, your first responsibility is to teach them how to be good citizens.
Right.
Not allowed to do that anymore.
No, it's amazing.
I mean,
that's
in my opinion, the teacher should provide the information and then let them decide.
Right, right. I mean, that's how I always was. That's how I was taught coming up. But I've been in classes where it was completely different, and I've witnessed other teachers, like I said, like their political views were right out there for the kids, and if anybody argued, they would argue right there with the debate with the child, and I would have a real problem if any of my kids' teachers were trying to sway my children either way with politics. I would have a major issue with it, and I'm just shocked that it's even allowed.
The teachers, those teachers, the kids how to think.
Right.
Not what to
Right.
think,
Let
how
them
to
make
think.
their decision.
How do you think?
Right.
What's the
Right.
process?
Exactly.
Teach them how to research.
Yeah.
Right.
Formulate your own opinion.
Your job.
Teach them how to balance a checkbook. Very simple things.
Well, that's a major issue, and I think that education, if they're going to reform anything in this country, it has to. They got to look at
One of the
education.
schools I worked with, gang members straight off the bus from Riverhead were bringing them to the school because they didn't want to spend the day in jail.
Yeah,
But it's the last school you can go to on Long Island.
Yeah, before. Yeah.
And I worked there with
Amazing.
gang members. And it's not them members, it's not education.
No.
It's sitting at the police
No, you're babysitting, criminals basically at that point. It's all.
babysitting criminals, exactly.
Yeah.
People who have 21, they have
Yeah, I was in the same type of. I taught a lot of the children that I taught were behavior issues and stuff, and I got to, some of the tactics that were used. Like education was very far on the bottom of what they were.
The age for bodybuilders.
Yeah. It's a
Stuff I
joke.
saw, I mean,
Oh, it's a joke. It's a joke.
it was an education.
Yeah. So.
All right, well, we're going
Yeah.
an hour and a half.
Yeah,
I'm
so
gonna
it's-
squash it,
yeah.
But it's been a lot of fun.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us, and it was really insightful. And thank you also.
Yeah, but you're welcome. Like I said, if you.
I'll send it to
Yeah,
my
come-
brother and he'll send it to you.
Like I said, if you want my sister to come back and
Anytime you
Yeah.
guys are welcome to come back,
because
come
I'm
on.
sure she's got a lot
Yeah.
of.
I would love it, and I was a teacher, so I would love to talk with you if you ever want to come. Just
I'm an old school mother.
yes,
And I
you
have
mentioned
a lot
that.
to
So
say.
why don't you please come on?
I mean, my son died for this country.
Yeah, I would
Burn a
love
flag,
to have you on.
burn a
Yeah,
flag.
Absolutely.
but I would love to. Like I said, just tell Don, let him shoot me a text, and anytime, any day you want, we do it at the same time. You're always welcome.
Absolutely.
Please, I would love to have you. So, and I have like I said, I used to be a teacher, and I would love to talk about your son. I mean, I would be honored. So, feel free. Always welcome.
All right.
All right. Do you want to use the bathroom?
No, it's only if I have a.
Oh, okay. I got you.
All right.
Got you. All right.
All right, so we'll be back. We'll be back tomorrow. And that is
Wonderful.
that.